The Theory of Class and Class Conflict by Karl Marx. Before we get into the lesson, let us understand this with an example. What is class? How did class emerge? And what did Karl Marx say about it? So just imagine that I am a producer of masks and I have a factory that I put up for this production. Now I have hired 4 laborers to produce these masks, and just imagine that for the raw materials and everything that I require for the production of mask comes to rupees 5, and for per mask I give the labor 5 rupees, and I have 4 laborers, so I am giving them 20 rupees for the production of 4 masks that they produce. So if I talk about one mask, it costs me 5 rupees for the production, 5 rupees that I give to one labor, and just imagine that I sell it at a cost of say 50 rupees. So still my profit comes to 40 rupees. Now just imagine, for per 40 rupees, my labor is getting only 5 rupees. And I am a very bad producer. I am a very bad businessman. Bad in the sense, I am not giving my labor any incentives, no health care, no holidays. I am making them work overtime also. But I am a very good businessman at the same time. How come? Because I am earning very good profits. Now just imagine, the masks, they are generally sold to the hospitals and some other areas. So I am, on a usual day, I am earning a profit of 40 rupees per mask. And I might have a lot of surplus produce. Surplus produce in the sense that the demand is not that much and I have a lot of product stored in my warehouse. Now the time changes. The time changes how? Corona comes into existence. What happens? Demand of masks rise. I am selling n number of masks now, and I am selling them at whatever price I want. Instead of selling them at the initial price of 50, I can sell them at 80, 90, 100, whatever that I want. Now my profits are getting increased further, but am I giving anything out of those profits to my labor? No. His work is done, he got rupees 5 and he will still get rupees 5 only, even if my profit gets doubled. So what is happening? I am exploiting my labor. So what is the role of class here? The class will be made only and only if these laborers, they understand what I am doing, they think of themselves as a class, they create awareness, unity, and fight for themselves. And that is when the class will emerge. So this is what we are going to study about today. So how did this happen? So we'll go a little back in time and understand this from Adam Smith. He was a well-known economist, and we will understand his views and then come to Karl Marx. In his book, The Wealth of Nations, Adam Smith talked about free economy. He said that the economy should be free from any kind of government forces and the industrialists should be let free. Whatever they want, they should be allowed to do it. So what were his expectations? Why did he suggest this? He suggested this because he thought that it will help to maximize profit and there will be a lot of use of machinery and capital, so the dependency on laborers would reduce. He also said that when the profits will be maximized, the wages for the workers will get better. He also said that best products for consumers will be given at competitive prices, at low prices. So this is what he suggested. But the reality was quite different from the expectations. What happened instead was the same example that I told you. The industrialists, they became richer and richer and the sufferings of workers increased. They did not get anything from the profits. They were working at the same low wages, long working hours, exploited. Some of them were unemployed, replaced by machines, and there were no provision given to them for health, for education, or any other incentives as well. So this is what happened with the emergence of capitalism, and Marx considered this only as the base of his study in Europe and started researching on this, and he said that when the working class was working for the industrialists, they were at the very last of the receiving end. That means whenever something was to be received, only the people who had wealth, they were at the beginning of the line, and the working class who used to work, who used to make everything for them, they were at the end of the receiving line. Okay, they did not get anything. So before we move ahead, there are for certain important points that we need to understand before getting into the concept and theory of class conflict. So what is class? First of all, class is when and only when there is a common relationship with the mode of production. That means when the laborers are working together, that is one class, and the other class is the industrialists or the producers. So basically, this is the haves who have the wealth, who have the power, and the other class, that is the working class, the have nots. What is surplus production? When the demand is not that much and the production is more. No consumption and more production. Class conflict, when one class, here the class would be the industrialists, when they hurt or damage or deteriorate the other, that is the working class, when they are exploiting this is class conflict. They are trying to harm them. Class in itself is, example, when the laborers, they do not have any awareness and there is no unity also, but they are unorganized and they think we are a class. So this is not a class, this is just a class in itself. Marx called this pseudo class or false class. The organized part of this is class for itself, who fight for their causes, fight for their rights. The next is petty bourgeois. This petty bourgeois were the self-employed small businessmen, can be like shopkeepers. They were also working only, but they were different from the working class that we are talking about. Now, socialism. Socialism is no private property, state does exist, but there is no exploitation of the working class. Marx called this as dictatorship of the proletariat. Second is communism, where there is no social institution. Okay, when everything is divided equally among the people according to their needs. Cash nexus. Cash nexus is the relationship between, for example, if I am the producer and I have a laborer and I only pay him for the work he does, I am not involved or I do not entertain any of his needs, any of his holidays. I do not have any emotional connection with him. This is just a purely wage based relationship or money based relationship. Now, in his book, The Communist Manifesto, Marx quoted, "Hitherto, the history of class is history of struggle." So once the class is emerged, once there is a consciousness, once they have stood up for their unity, the history of struggle also begins, because it is not easy for the laborers to fight for their rights and stand up against the industrialists. So how did this class emerge? This emerged because he said that in primitive societies, Marx said that there was no class. It was a classless society. And when there was surplus production, of course, the haves had the authority over it and the have nots did not. This also existed in the feudal society, where the feuds had authority and the slaves, they were the have nots. They did not have anything. So when this class was unorganized, this was a false class. So what Marx said was, there is a need for consciousness to change this class in itself to class for itself. Okay, and when they gained consciousness, they became class for itself. Marx also predicted that this class for itself, they will bring about a revolution and they will change everything. They will say no to private property, no to state, and no to class, and therefore it will become a classless and egalitarian society. Egalitarian is where everyone is treated equally. Everything will get according to their needs and they will work according to their interests. There will be no exploitation, no class. And this is known as the class and class conflict theory that is given by Karl Marx, where there is no exploitation, There's no just a relationship of cash nexus where everything is equal and for the well-being of all the people living in the society. So this theory was criticized on various grounds, like Max Weber said, I do not see any possibility of a revolution. The problems will be solved only when the two classes they come to an agreement by talking. Ralph Dahrendorf predicted no polarization of working class. When he talks about polarization of working class, he says that Marx predicted that the petty bourgeois or the small shopkeepers and small businessmen, he said that they will unite with the working class. But Ralph Dahrendorf said there is no polarization that will happen, because when the shopkeepers, they have a different kind of problems than the labor class, so they will not be able to relate to them. And why would they come into a class with them when they cannot even relate to their problems? Because for a class to be, the most important point is common goals and objectives to unite with each other. Lenin said that without an intellectual leadership, polarization of the poor cannot take place. And there were some other criticisms as well, like Marx considered only the exploitation of working class for the bringing about of the revolution, but there were many sociologists who said that there were many other reasons like corruption, insufficiency of the government, moral bankruptcy of the ruling class who considered the have-nots as they were meant to be exploited. So this was their moral bankruptcy. Anthony Giddens said, communism is a utopia. Utopia is something that cannot be achieved. We can only dream about it. A classless society, according to him, cannot be achieved. Now let us understand some questions. According to Dahrendorf, Marx's theory of class conflict is, he said, it is to be rejected, accepted, and modified contextually, because polarization will happen, but polarization of the working class with the pretty bourgeois is not going to happen. So this theory needs some modification and better understanding according to the terms that are happening now, according to the changes. Now some assumptions are given below. The definitional assumptions about class and class conflict in the Marxian theory are, the answer will be 3 and 4, that is option D. Class conflict is inherent in society. He said that class conflict has been there since the primitive times when there were slaves and feuds. And the next option is economic inequality lies at the core of class conflict. This is very true, because class conflict is based upon the economic exploitation of the laborer by the producer. Question number 3. Identify the correct logical order as explained by Karl Marx. So the class answer is B. First, there is class in itself, where the group is unorganized. Then they became aware and organized, class for itself. Then the class conflict occurs when they try to bring about changes with the unity, and then it would lead to social transformation as Marx had predicted. So I hope you were able to understand this. Thank you for watching.